Hi, it's John. Welcome to my channel, EV Intuition, where I'm helping you understand about electric vehicles. Well, I've owned my Tesla Model Y now for over 3 years, and Tesla recommends changing the cabin air filter every 2 years. Now, you could say I'm about due, and I said the same thing to myself. So I decided it's time to change that cabin air filter. Now, whenever I get into a project that needs to be done, I decide whether I should do it or should have somebody else do it. So I did some reading on the Tesla's service manual and looked at a few videos, and I said, I think I can change the cabin air filter myself. But I want to warn you, one video I watched said you can do it in 4 minutes. You can't do it in 4 minutes. And I don't think you could done mine in 4 minutes, even the person doing the video. And I'm going to tell you why, but it's doable. In retrospect, if you've got the time and the patience and watch this video, I make it easy for you to show you what you need to do and how to get it done. So let's get started. Before I begin, I want to remind you that if you like the content on my channel, please subscribe and send me a like. Also, give me any comments that you might have. Today we're talking about, here's the steps in order to change the cabin air filter on a Tesla Model Y long range. Now mine's a 2023 version, and one of the things that I learned through this process is that there's some variation in how the cover of that filter is fastened, and there's several different variations. I happen to have one of the more difficult ones, and so I want to show you how I was able to change the cabin air filter on my Tesla Model Y, and here's the steps involved in doing it. Enjoy.
The first step in replacing your cabin air filters on your Tesla is to purchase the air filters themselves. Now, you can buy the original equipment filters from Tesla for $40. What I did instead was went to Amazon and bought this aftermarket air filters for $18. Given that, right off the bat, I'm saving $22. Now, my understanding is Tesla will charge you another $40 for labor. So doing it yourself will save you a total of $62. Here's a look at the box that I received once the air filters came. The other thing is when you open the box, you get 2 filters, which is needed because there are 2 filters in your cabin air filter compartment. And it also came with 2 tools that became handy in installing these filters and removing the old filters. We're going to begin removing the old filters by going into the front passenger compartment. So go in there, remove any floor mats you have, and move the seat all the way back. Then on the right side of that center console, you're going to remove that panel. It's the material, or the fuzzy black material in my case. And I used that orange tool that came with the filters to pull that back and then remove the whole panel. Then you're going to look inside and look for the cover to the filters. It's way in there. But the key thing that you got to look for is what is holding that cover on. Sometimes there's a screw that's on the bottom of the cover. Sometimes it's on the top, and sometimes you don't even have a screw or a fastener. You just have some plastic part that you can pull off. Well, unfortunately, in my case, I had the screw or the Torx screw at the top of the cover, way up inside the passenger compartment there. And this made my removing the old filters much more difficult because getting my hand in there with a Torx screwdriver was not that simple. So I decided that in order to give me a little more room, I removed the center console footwell piece, which is a plastic piece underneath, kind of like the glove compartment there. And there's these push plastic pins that I used, once again, that orange tool that I got in my filters to pop those off. And you just basically use that, pull them back, and they pop right out. And they'll pop back in when you return it. So no harm there. Don't worry about that. Once I removed that, then I lowered that panel. And then what I saw was that there's 2 connectors or wires connected to that panel. One is the speaker in that panel, and another one is the light. Now, this is where I had to become careful. I don't want to just pull these off. And so I had to make sure I knew how to remove those connectors so that I can completely remove the panel. I started with the light, and That one was the most difficult one because it slides back, but the key is how do you begin to make it slide? And what I found out after much looking into it is take my fingernail on that right-hand side and push it down and then slide it to the right. Once I was able to do that, it came off very easily. You don't want to force things off here because you do not want to break any connectors there. The next one was the speaker connector, and that you just pull up. Just a little force pops that right out. And you can see in the images here what those two connectors look like. Now I had as much room as I was going to get in order to get to that torque screw at the top of the cover. So I took that torque tool that came with the new air filters and I reached under there, connected it in, and worked my way to get that screw off. It was not easy because it kept falling off out of that screw head, but with enough time, enough patience, and some breaks in between, I was able to totally remove that torque screw and remove the cover. Now with the cover off, I wanted to remove the old filters. So in looking at them, you had one on top of the other, and they had each a little flap at the top of it. So I pulled the flap and kind of pulled them out. They don't come out as easy as you think, but you just force them out and they come out. And looking at them, they didn't look too badly soiled. So I was pretty happy that I had let them go for one more year than Tesla recommended. And I didn't think it did me any harm. Once the old air filters are out, the next thing is to put the new ones in. And they just reverse the process. You put the lower one in first, making sure that the airflow goes from the front of the vehicle to the cabin of the vehicle in both cases. So you put the first one in, it goes down, and then you slide the next one in. And then you take the cover, close it up, and get that screw on there, and then tighten that screw down. I found that tightening the screw went a lot faster than loosening it because I could hand tighten it for a good portion and then take the tool and tighten it appropriately. Now that the new air filters are installed and closed, I put the panels back. I started with the panel by your feet underneath the glove compartment where they had the push pins. You start first by connecting the two connectors that held them and then push those push pins in. They went in pretty easily. And then the right side of your center console, that fuzzy section that I snapped out with those plastic pins, you just push them back in place and use your fist to kind of tap them. And that went very easily. Then you can return your floor mat and push your seat back into its normal position. The final step is to make a record of that cabin air filter replacement. And you do that by going to your menu screen, go under Service, Maintenance, Cabin Air Filter Replacement, and then record that you had replaced it. That creates a record in the car and it allows service personnel, maintenance personnel to all know that you've done that particular service maintenance. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope this has made replacing your cabin air filter much more understandable, and if you're willing to, help you to do it yourself. Thanks for watching.